get caught in the middle of a conversation. All right. We are live right here, right now with Mr. Kevin Norstrem, the one of only 5 wrestlers in Florida State history to win the title 5 times. What is really, really dope is that his brother did it also. So 2 out of the 5 lived in the same house. That's crazy. How are you? How you doing? How has this affected your world right now? What's going on? Thank you for coming on. First of all, I do appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate everything you're doing for the sport. You're bringing a lot of publicity to the sport that it really needs right now, especially in this time. For me, things are going great. I'm still employed. Business is going well. We're still working a ton of hours. Just doing it from home. Waking up, still working out, working every day, and I don't have the weekend nightlife to go out and hang out. I don't have the wrestling or the coaching I really get to do, but I'm thankful I still have a job and I'm still able to, put food on the table.
Wow, that's awesome. And is your brother still in college, or is he back home now as well?
Yeah, Kyle's still he's up at Tech. I think he's still got another 2 semesters. He's supposed to be coming home this summer for an internship, but we'll see where that where that ends up.
That kept you, I guess that keeps you pretty involved in that program still, huh? Up there?
Yeah. I guess we're jumping right into the meat of some of these stories, but Kyle actually had neck surgery. He had neck surgery I think we're on a year anniversary around, and things went wrong. He woke up paralyzed and had to go back in for surgery for another couple hours. Came out of it, slowly regained the use of all of his limbs. So now he's still struggling with his left hand a little bit, but he's done wrestling. He can't wrestle anymore. He's got severe trauma to his neck and his back. But
my apologies.
No worries. No.
I'm just a stupid guy that loves wrestling. I had no idea that happened to him. So First of all, my condolences, and I'm glad he's back doing better, and I'm glad he's moving everything. I guess going from paralyzed to just not moving your hand is a hell of a progress.
It is. And, I tell people all the time, I've never met somebody as tough as Kyle and as persevering as Kyle is. Me, I work out a lot. I still wrestle a lot. I play a lot of golf. I like doing a lot of outdoor activities that require some sort of athleticism, and it not being able to do that anymore, like Kyle can't, or at least for this period of time, would have driven me nuts. I don't know what I would have done. Even playing video games, buttoning his shirt is still something that's tough for him. And I've never heard him really complain about it ever. He's never asked for handouts. He's just he's always been the same. He's been the same Kyle, smiling, giggling, looking at the bright side, and, always looking forward. He's never, dwelling on what happened to him. So I'm proud of him for that.
If he was not a wrestler, could he have handled this the way he did?
Oh, I see. That's funny that you asked that. I have no idea, because we've been wrestlers since I can remember. I don't even remember life before wrestling. We were 5. Kyle might have been 4. So probably not, but you're right. The toughness and the, being able to handle things when you're at your absolute worst, when you're at rock bottom. So to answer your question, probably not. I mean, wow. I just can't believe how well he's doing and how well mentally he's handling things.
Oh, well, that's good. I'm glad he's doing well. And again, I had no idea, or else I wouldn't have.
Yeah, no worries. And I'm actually, glad it came up, because the support from the Florida wrestling community has been awesome. And everyone's always reaching out and asking, how's Kyle? And not in a bad way. It's, it's great that they're all showing support. Even people we used to wrestle against, that they might have been considered enemies back then. Everybody's reaching out, asking about his health. So I'm glad to be able to to put it out there.
What was a prouder moment, you winning your 5th or seeing your little brother win the 5th?
Oh, seeing Kyle for sure. I wasn't there. I got to watch it online, but I get more nervous watching Kyle or watching the guys I coach than I ever was. And I've wrestled on some pretty big stages, high school and college, but watching some of my guys compete nowadays and watching watching Kyle compete was probably the worst. His freshman year, he wrestled a kid named Alex Yuri, who was extremely tough, probably one of the best to ever not win a state title. And he was a senior, Kyle was a freshman, and the match was tight the entire time. And Kyle ends up headlocking him and pinning him. I don't remember in what period, but I went into my finals match. I wasn't even nervous after that. It was magical. It was weird. It was weird how relaxed I was after that. But to answer your question, I get more nervous watching other guys than before my own matches.
Yeah, and I asked. Now obviously the Rivera brothers are twins, so there's a little difference. I mean, they're still brothers, but I asked him the same thing when one of them won. How did the other one come on the mat right after that? He was like, Palazzo had to grab my face and be like, okay, forget that. Go.
Yeah.
he was like, all right, I'm going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's weird, man. It's because it's out of your control. I think that's why you can't go out. That's one of the beauties, behind the sport of wrestling is it's out of your other teammates when they're on the mat. It's out of your control. You can't really help them. You can yell and coach maybe and cheer, but it's not going to help them. Any wrestler knows that. You're not listening to your mom or your dad or your friend when you're wrestling. You barely hear your coach.
Look at this. People are putting Mike Cipriano just posted the best ever, in my opinion.
he's my favorite ref right now. I told him at the state tournament, he's one of the guys that I don't see him get many calls wrong if he gets any. And he's very humble. If he's wrong, he admits it. And I think
I'm gonna start a show with him just weekly, Ask the Ref. And I said to him, I know it's not going to be great right now because there's no wrestling, but once people start wrestling, we're going to need like, hey, that ref sucks. Hey, that ref gives favoritism to that coach. All the shit that you hear, right?
Man.
But I did tell him that whenever my kid is getting ready to wrestle, or anybody on his team, when they see Sips on the mat, they're like, okay, that's a fair ref.
Yeah.
He can go either way. He coaches it or refs it how he sees it. So yeah, but he's a good man. I met him the other day. He came on the show, but he gave you a shout out. So, so you get done. You're a 5-time champ, right? Obviously Florida, that's huge. And didn't you guys isn't 4 out of the 5 from your high school, Brandon? Didn't you have 2 that did 5 the year before or something?
Yeah, there's 5. I think there's 5. If there's 5, we definitely had 4.
You had 4, yeah, because the other one was from Lake Highland Prep.
Yeah, we had Rossi and Clark, Rossi Bruno, Clark Glass win it the year before. So 2012, they were both 5-timers.
Wow.
And then I was 2013.
So you decide Virginia Tech. I'm sure you had many colleges in the country looking at you.
Right.
What made you choose ACC? What made you choose Virginia Tech?
So the schools I was talking to heavily were University of Pennsylvania. So I always knew I wanted to be a business major, wanted to go into the business world. So UPenn was probably my top choice for a while, because I was extremely close with Valeni, the oldest Grahalis from Brandon, who was a 4/5-timer. He was technically the first 5-timer, but he actually forfeited to his cousin in the state finals his 8th grade year. So technically wasn't a 5-timer, but we'll count it. But he went to the University of Pennsylvania, did well there. I trained up at their RTC a lot. So that school was really big on my radar. And obviously their business school is top 5 in the country. University of Oklahoma, Glass was there, and Frayer was there recruiting me heavily. Northwestern, their academics, and their wrestling wasn't exactly where it is now, but still was a good academic school. And then Virginia Tech and Kevin Dresser actually came onto my radar very late in the process. So I took my visits everywhere, enjoyed them. But when I stepped on campus to Virginia Tech, it had that not small town feel, but it was a college town, very big college town. They had a good business school. They took me to a football game, which if you've ever seen videos or watched a game at Virginia Tech, it's.
I'm a big Hurricanes fan, and I
Yeah.
was at the Orange Bowl game, which was like the last game ever in the Orange Bowl or something, and Virginia Tech beat us.
Yeah.
And
Like it's rich in history. It's
I
rich
was
in
at a
history and
bunch
that,
of Michael Vick games when I was younger. That might
yeah, like Enter Sandman and that stuff, like it does something to you. You're captivated the second you step on campus. And I went in October. The leaves were changing color. They were all orange. You know, you could see the mountains. It wasn't too cold, and it was, you know, it was the perfect mix between good wrestling and good academics. So it was a pretty easy choice after I left Blacksburg.
and they had to have been stoked to get someone of your caliber coming in there. That must have made their day, huh?
Yeah, yeah. You know, it was a good recruiting class. You had Zach Epperly, two-time All-American, three-time round of 12 guy. He was in my class. My roommate, Joey Dance, two-time All-American, four-time, I think, round of 12er, coach at Davidson now. Me, Dennis Gustafson, two-time qualifier, two-time ACC champ. You know, all of us in the same recruiting class.
Wow.
It was something special that year, and that was, you know, another year that Virginia Tech really took another leap forward.
Now, were you there? And I don't remember, because I know that a good friend of mine, his wife went to Virginia Tech. Were you there before or after the incident on campus?
Way after. I think I don't remember. I shouldn't remember the exact year, but that was probably 8 years prior. 8 years maybe prior to me.
Oh, great. You're going to
Yeah.
tell me that I'm getting freaking old because it feels like it was just yesterday.
Yeah. No, that was a while before me.
Oh, so great.
Not
So,
too long. Not too long.
that's awesome. So you get to, so obviously did some big things in high school, and then you get to Virginia Tech, and you start to wrestle. It looks like you had your first 2 years looked prompt. You had some good big years there, and then so talk about your college years, man, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I get this question all the time. You know, I think I was top 10 recruit in the country out of all weights. You know, there's a lot of expectations that came out of me, and especially me out of myself. You know, nobody was more critical on me than I was. So I go to Tech that summer, take summer classes. I'm beating the senior starter at 133 right out the get-go. And they want me to go, and they want me to start. And I was battling an ankle sprain. I didn't feel strong at the weight yet. I was 19 years old, 20 years old. I didn't have a full year in the weight room. And I was cutting a little bit too much weight to be able to put on that muscle. So I wanted to redshirt. I wanted to compete in open tournaments, and go the next year. So I competed in open tournaments, did really well at those. I think I only lost 4 or 5 matches. I won, I think, 20. You know, I had a really good redshirt year. I go into the next year. I started 133 pounds. You know, I place at Vegas. I place at Midlands. You know, I'm having a great year up until we start ACC wrestling, ACC duels, and the weight cut really starts hitting me. My grades start slipping. And I'm just, once you get in a slump in college, a lot of guys know this. It's hard to get out of, you know, and I didn't take a break off the mat. Me and I think Sal Mastriani were two of the only guys on the team that year that didn't have off from any competition. You know, we wrestled every single match. And, you know, sometimes I hate to say this, but sometimes it hurts to get a little banged up in the middle of the year or at the beginning of the year and get off the mat a little bit. And not get so swallowed up in the thick of things. So I had a slump. I still qualified for the NCAA tournament. I went 1-2. So I wasn't too happy about it. And, you know, I was only one of 2 freshmen to qualify for the national tournament that year. And I still was very upset. And I actually beat the other freshmen at the tournament. So I was extremely upset. But, you know, I shouldn't have been. And then we go into the off season. I'm lifting. I still have the, you know, intentions of going 133 pounds. That's where they want me. So I make 133 the next year. I'm having a decent year. And then, you know, I lose one match that I shouldn't have lost. And it kind of just put me over the edge. My grades continued to slip. You know, I started out with like a 3.8 GPA. in my freshman year, and I'm down to like a 2.5 right now, and I'm cutting too much weight. The world, everybody gets to go home for Thanksgiving and the holidays, and me being from Florida, it was tough for me, and I didn't get to go home very much, and I was kind of by myself in my thoughts, depressed, and I didn't love the sport anymore. And I was someone that was always obsessed with it, and I couldn't wait to just be done with it. So I called it quits in the middle of my redshirt sophomore year. You have any questions, or would you want me to keep going?
I'm just listening. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's good to hear somebody at that high of a level, but still understand the importance of education. A lot of kids can't separate that.
No, and that's a huge problem in the sport today. That kind of segue. I'll finish the story, but that's another sport.
Sips just sent out, do you think that you over wrestled in high school, which may have led to that contribution to your burnout?
No, because I loved it in high school. I used to train at the Olympic Training Center for a couple of weeks out of the year in the summer when you could be out partying in Florida, going to the beach and stuff. And it was my choice to go up to Colorado Springs in the middle of nowhere and live in a dorm with 3 guys and train for weeks. That was my choice. And I loved it, and because I was good at it, and it came natural. But in college, it comes natural to most people. But I think, the weight cut was what it killed me. And I knew I wasn't going to wrestle after college. I didn't have Olympic aspirations. I didn't have world team aspirations. I wanted to get a good job, and I wanted to start making a lot of money. That's always been my goal. And cutting weight, getting a 2.5, 2.6 GPA, missing class so I could just sleep. I didn't have the energy to go out to walk to class. Like, I had to sleep and get ready for practice, or I'd get my ass chewed. So I cut class to be able to compete at practice, which is it's awful, and it's not the way to grow this sport. So no, the excessive high school wrestling was not why I burnt out. It was the weight cut. And it's sad that, that's how my career went, but in the end, I'm kind of happy. It did.
But you stopped right there, right? I mean, your junior year, you said, I'm done.
Junior year, I said, I'm done. And when I went in to talk to Dresser about it, he really didn't even ask. He knew, I'd been showing signs. He knew the second I told him. There was no crying. There was no nothing. I was set. This is the first time I'm telling anybody this, but when I quit, I lost this match at South Dakota State to some kid. And I was sitting in the bathroom because we had to make weight 2 days later for a duel with North Dakota State. I mean, we're in the middle of nowhere. We're in the middle of absolutely nowhere. In the middle of winter, I'm cutting weight, a lot of weight, and I'm sitting in the bathroom. I'm like 8 pounds over. I got to make it in 2 days, and I'm already sucked out. And I didn't get my ass beat, but I got my ass beat by this kid that I had no business losing to. And I called my dad, and I said, I was crying, and I said, I'm done. This is it. This is my last match. And what's funny is the match was in Fargo, North Dakota, where I pretty much made a name for myself. That was where I did so well every single year I went. And it was funny. I called my dad right before the match, and I was kind of at terms with it, at peace with it. I was like, how funny is it? I'm going to end my career in Fargo, North Dakota, one of the places I hate most, but the places that has contributed to my success. And sure enough, I go out there and I crushed the kid, and that didn't change my mind. I knew it. I got back to Blacksburg, went to Dresser.
But just you coming to terms and having that conversation with your dad, you got back on the mat being you and as good as you were, and were able to win that match and then be able to walk away.
Yeah. And I think one of the reasons why there's a million reasons why I didn't pan out as I wanted to in college. I mean, I still was an NCAA qualifier. I still beat a number of All-Americans, but to my standards, to most people's standards, I didn't pan out. One of the reasons was I got to college, and in high school, I was a very athletic wrestler. I was faster than most people I wrestled. I wasn't very much stronger, but I was more elusive, more technical. That was where I made my living, was kind of wrestling away from the guy and not so much hard hand fighting. And I got to college, and I tried to become this hard hand fighting, gritty wrestler that really took away from everything I was good at. All of my reattacks, all of my misdirections, all of my duck unders, everything was thrown out the window. And I started from square one. I tried to hand fight really hard. I tried to win the tie up all the time in places where kids have been wrestling their whole lives and where kids have been making a living. And I'm starting from scratch. So that kind of leads me into the next point where, so I quit and I take a total year off the mat. Not off the mat, but of competing. And I start coaching with my roommate who graduated from Tech, Zach Nybert. He was an All-American. He was coaching at a high school down the street in Blacksburg. So I start coaching with him. And I fall back in love with the sport because I'm coaching kids. I'm telling them what I was good at. I kind of revert back to what I was so good at in high school, what made me who I was. And I started wrestling more and more with those guys. And it didn't make me want to compete again, but I started watching more wrestling and I started staying up to date with the team a lot. And that kind of propelled me into jumping back into it. So that was the end of that year I quit. And one of the reasons I was glad I quit was I got an internship that summer with a company down here in Tampa. And that was like a 13-week internship. So I was working full time and then helping the branding club out on the side. So I was getting the best of both worlds. I was doing what I wanted to. I was working, I was making money, and I was building towards my career, but I was also still on the mat, wrestling, coaching, getting the best of both worlds. And without quitting, I who knows where I'd be in with my employment status.
So it was, so taking that year off really helped you reset.
Well, I got my GPA back up too. I focused all my time on my grades. I focused all my time on my grades and my job search, my professional development. Kids nowadays don't have that. Any good program, you're not leaving for the summer. Your coaches are not going to let you go and leave for 8 weeks and get an internship. You have to stay and train and lift and probably compete. And that's a serious problem we have today is I was told growing up this fallacy of you're a wrestler, someone will give you a job. Well, no one's going to hire a 23, 24-year-old wrestler with no work experience with a 3.0, 3.2 GPA against a 22-year-old kid that's got 2 internships and a good GPA and they've got work experience. So, I'm thankful that I was able to realize that. And I don't think that's the way I was thinking when I quit.
Do you think if they would have had you at like 141 or 149, you might have stayed in the sport?
Yeah, probably. I think the weight cut was really what just killed me, burned me out. I didn't look forward to who I was wrestling or the stage. I was just focused on what I weighed on the scale at every point in my day, weighing my food. Like, it was ridiculous. Like, 8, 9, 10 o'clock workouts were the 2-hour workouts in plastics. Like,
somebody just asked, best match that never happened. Kevin versus Fox at either 138 or 145. Who wins?
I win.
Of course he's going to say that, guys.
Why would he pick
Fox?
But no, Fox was great, man. He was he was obviously I think the best top wrestler, one of the best top wrestlers ever come out of ever come out of Florida. He might have run into some similar problems I did in college. Maybe the burnout effect of, I don't know how much weight he was cutting but it just goes to show you that, college wrestling, just because you're good in high school doesn't mean you're going to pan out, right?
Yeah,
There's plenty of kids.
Brandon George said you were the best partner at 8 years old.
Yeah, man, I miss those guys. And I still keep in contact with the George family always. I love what Brandon's doing at SCU. I need to get down there more and train with those guys. It's only 45 minutes away, but those two brothers, that family has done more for the sport of wrestling.
So being that you kind of went through this and lived that life, now let's let the kids know, look, he had to take a break for school, which is okay. However, he didn't fall completely out of love. He fell back in love with the sport. But so I'm a kid at home right now, and I have aspirations to go to college and to wrestle in college and be great and maybe even do something after that. But also I'm hearing, hey, wrestling is life and it's your foundation, but you still got to understand the education needs to come as well to go be a human, obviously, in the business world. Do you discourage the process of college wrestling right now, or do you?
That's a slippery slope. Do I discourage college wrestling? No, I don't discourage college wrestling because
I don't know, maybe that came off wrong. Do you? Maybe because I ask a lot of coaches.
I think the system's broken. I think it's yes, it's good for employers right out of college to look at your resume and see that you were a college wrestler, right? It's good, but there's a big sacrifice. You only have so many hours in a day, right? If you're a college athlete and you're a wrestler, that's 20 to 40 hours a week, easily. Not to mention the extra cutting weight, the toll it takes on your body and your mind, your energy, right? So if there's definitely a few that have done it and they've done really well. We have.
How do coaches control that? Like I ask a lot of coaches when I talk to them, how are they able to manage a kid academically and make sure that that's right and wrestling and not kind of, have their best interest at heart as the wrestling room?
Yeah. So that's where I'm, I would like to see the NCAA or coaches kind of step in and kick kids out of the room for 8 to 10 weeks in the summer, make them go get an internship, make them get a job. They don't need to be wrestling year round. 8 weeks out of the year for professional development is what kids need it. You can't, because most athletes redshirt, right? Most athletes take 5 years of college. So you're already going to be a year older than people you're graduating with. Okay. If you're training in the summer, you can't go get a meaningful internship, right? You can't get that. And when you go to graduate and you've got a lackluster GPA and no work experience and you're a year older than everybody you're competing for a job with, you're stacking the deck against them.
Now let's play devil's advocate, right? So we can get your answer.
Okay.
But let's say now there's a coach right now that's saying, well, so you just want them to go off and have no diet plan, have no weight training plan, not be around anything that way. Yeah. What's your argument? I think I know what you're going to say, but I wanted to kind of to help be the other side of this.
If this was high school, I would totally get that, right? But a lot of these, and I'm not saying do this to every grade level, maybe juniors or even seniors, incoming seniors, maybe only those 2 grades. I don't have every answer, but these are grown men. And, they're going to have to grow up at some point. When you're 21, 22 years old, you should be able to work out a couple times a week and do that away from your coaches, right? Like it's not tricky to find a workout, to find a wrestling room, a local high school that you can go and enroll with guys after work. I mean, coaches would love that. And that would talk about growing the sport. You send college guys, the entire Division I atmosphere out into the workforce for 8 weeks, just juniors and seniors, right? Most of those guys are going to find local high schools and train with them. And that's only going to grow the grassroots program. That's only going to, parents are going to see alumni come in and kids that are working and competing, at the Division I level, and they're great role models for their kids. That's how you're going to grow the sport.
Couldn't coaches and the strength and conditioning departments be able to, like right now we're quarantined, right? Our young kids are quarantined, but my son has a strength and conditioning coach who has been able to say, here's some things that you can do while you're home to keep you in shape. Couldn't the coaching staff and the strength and conditioning staff be able to say, hey, go do your internship. Let us know once you get your internship what your schedule is, and we can put something together for you around that as far as a diet or a strength and conditioning or rolling. Couldn't that happen?
Why not? I don't see why not. What, you're going to babysit these kids till they're 22 years old, 23 years old? I mean, it's going to happen. they're going to have to go into the real world at some point. You may as well get them going on the right foot. You may as well stack the deck in your favor. And I think that's part of the problem is not all college coaches, right? A lot of college coaches care about their athletes during their days of competition and also post, right? But there's some coaches that it's wrestling is the way they put food on the table, whether you win or lose, and collectively whether your team wins or loses. You going out and getting a good job and making money, unfortunately doesn't pay their salary. So they're focused on wrestling and they want you around because they want the best product that they can put forward, right? So there's got to be a happy medium to where you can trust your juniors and seniors to cut them loose for 8 to 10 weeks and give them a 3 or 4 day a week weightlifting program. They're going to run. They'll find a room to get in if it really means something to them, right? I did it. And then I came back and I was the best wrestler I ever was, which, it's possible. And in fact, it kind of helps kids unplug a little bit from the D1 grind, right? And
were you impressed at the support that you got from Virginia Tech's coaching staff when you had a decision to better your life?
That wasn't, I didn't discuss it with them before. I didn't tell them why. I just told them, listen, I've fallen out of love. And they're like, do you need a break? And I'm like, yeah, a permanent one. And that was the original conversation. They didn't ask what I was doing. They knew I was serious. I got some, good support. They weren't happy for me, obviously, because, they invested a lot of time and money in me. But I think at that point in time knew I needed it. And, it helped, when I came back that I was a new kid, new outlook on the sport, older, more mature. I think in the end it was best because they had a guy at my weight that was just as good, if not better than me, towards the end of my slump, that second year of varsity.
So what do you, so now that you know what you know, of course you didn't know what you know now, right? Now that you know what you know, now you are having an opportunity to bring that knowledge into the wrestling club that you work with. Yep. And the young kids that you work with. So if you're growing the sport from the grassroots, sort of say, coming up, what type of mindset are you giving them? And are you trying to train their mindset to understand the importance of life in college and prepare them for what they're about to experience to maybe have them go in a direction that you're looking for the sport to go?
Yeah, good question. Absolutely. So I think there's a number of things that go into that, right? Is when you're coaching kids, there needs to be a fine line between, you being hard on them and making sure they're working hard and also making sure they're having fun, right? You don't want kids burning out in high school. That's ludicrous. Kids cutting too much weight and burning out in high school. It shouldn't happen, right? These kids they're still in puberty. They're not even young men yet. They're boys. So, there's making sure, you're always playing a game every now and then, right? You're playing wrestling, games geared towards wrestling, that kind of stuff, right? You're cracking jokes with them, but you're also running a hard practice. So there's a fine line between, making sure they're working hard and kind of chewing their asses a little bit. And then, making sure they're overall enjoying, they're reaping what they're sowing and they're seeing the benefits of it. So that's one thing. Another thing is, you want kids idolizing, wrestlers that are personable, right? There's plenty of wrestlers in the NCAA and in the world level like Kyle Snyder and Gwizdowski and those guys that you talk to them, they're normal people. You can hold a conversation with them. If they wanted to, they could go off and get an office job or any other job because they can talk to people, right? I hate that the sport sometimes idolizes the Brands brothers or the Gilmans because that's not how you get new parents and new kids to join the sport. They don't want to raise barbarians, right? They want you want to put a kid in a sport to develop and grow and develop a work habit, but also be a young man or woman in the end of the day and take that to your work life and your family life and your faith and that kind of stuff. Not to be to focus on one thing and just live or die if you win or lose, and be a total,
that's good stuff, man. Because you need to hear that as a young kid coming up, that from people that have lived and experienced that. They need to know two things. Obviously, wrestling is important for your life, but education is very important too. And wrestling is going to be that engine that'll get you to where you are offered an amazing opportunity to be a student athlete. But when you get there, you have to be a student athlete, and you've got to do it the right way and take advantage of your opportunities before you keep going. And this is amazing. I'm loving this. Before I look down, my interviews are usually like 20, 30 minutes. I look down, we've been talking for 45 minutes, and we can talk for hours right now. But Ricky Marcus just said, please tell Kevin I loved him even after he beat Dylan in the state finals.
Yeah.
Ricky's the man. Yeah, good kid. But now, after hearing this segment, obviously, like you said, nobody's ever heard this before. I love him even more. What a smart, mature kid. And he is a huge asset to our sport and the human race. So that's cool.
And Ricky, got to give him a shout out real quick. He started this whole Florida Wrestling Room, and I think he said we're approaching 10,000 members. So that's amazing, man. And shout out to Ricky. Thanks for you're helping the sport out in more ways than you know.
That's awesome. So another thing that's going on, and I think you mentioned it before we came on, the situation where Olympic sports could be affected by what's going on right now. And they're trying to reprieve sponsorships or reprieve scholarships, which could cause, Olympic sports to be cut.
Yeah. So, I mean, I haven't poured through the NCAA's balance sheet or any school's balance sheet or the UWW's balance sheet. But, if you just look at wrestling from a macro standpoint, right? We are too focused, USA Wrestling, the NCAA, is too focused on winning medals, right? Instead of, growing it just period, right? And if you look at, I looked this up right before the show, and you look at the most medals won in the Olympics, right? Wrestling's the sport that's won the third most gold medals out of any sport in the United States, right? The only two winning more, I think, are track and swimming. But if you look at the other more popular sports around the world, basketball, golf, tennis, those guys are down in the 10, 20, 20th rankings, but those people are more relatable, right? Like people are interested in golf and basketball and stuff because it's easier to understand, right? Golf, basketball hasn't changed much over the last how many years, right? Wrestling, it's the rules are changing too much, right? There's, that's every time you watch the Olympics, there's a whole new set of rules. You can't go back and watch 2016 or the 2012 Olympics and have the same rules we're going to have in 2020. Right? It's just getting too hard to follow. So, you want to grow the wrestling fan base. You need to grow, like I said, at the grassroots level more. You want to grow the sport. It needs to make more money. You need more people to watch it. You need more people to participate in it. Right? It's just like any business, and just like at colleges, right? If wrestling is costing the school a lot of money, or if it's not making the school money in times like this, why keep it? It's just like a business. If you've got a division or a branch that's not making you money, why keep it? What's the point? That's kind of the Wu-Tang saying of cash rules everything around me, but it's true. You've got to start fundraising, you got to start generating revenue, and that's going to keep the schools interested in keeping your sport.
Well, and that's the business side of it, right? But also the life side.
And it's suffering big time. The business aspect of wrestling.
However, but I don't think that any sport, whether it's an Olympic sport or a basketball, football, soccer, produces more. Now, please, all you football, baseball, and whatever people out there, this is not a knock, okay? I know you have good people too. Just relax. Okay. But I don't think you see more sport put out, more successful society individuals or people in business or humans than you see come out of wrestling. And if they have less opportunities to have the sport in these colleges, kids are going to go look at other sports and other avenues to be able to get into college.
Well, yeah. And also, another reason, my parents put me into wrestling to develop the work ethic. And also, as I got better at it, they saw I could pay for my college. So, and get a decent job afterwards. Well, the way you talk about, growing wrestling, and pretty much if you want to grow wrestling, it's got to make more money for everybody, right? All the business side of it. So you do that, you need more donors, and you need graduates to have larger income earning potential, out the gate. Those are the kids that are going to give back, right? The kids that wrestling did so much for. You got wrestlers graduating and then training for 5 years, trying to make an Olympic team, and then starting square one. They don't have two nickels to rub together. They're not going to give back to the sport. Now you got to go chase down people that maybe have never wrestled, that are kind of interested in it. A good example is that Mike Novogratz guy. He's I think he's approaching $1 billion net worth, but he's a guy that used wrestling to go on and succeed in the hedge fund world, in the financial services industry. And you need more guys like that, right? So you've got to create more employment opportunity for these kids upon graduation. Now, how do you do that? Maybe instead of asking for donors, right? Instead of going out and asking people to just write you a check, right? You develop relationships with successful wrestlers or successful businesses, or just people that are interested in your sport or your school, and you ask for an internship or an externship opportunity. You ask, hey man, I've got a kid, he's from here, he's interested in your business, he's majoring in this, could you give him an internship for 8 weeks? We're not asking you to write a check, just give him an opportunity to better his career, right? And you don't have to write us a check, right? And then over time, those kids that start to get, the wrestlers that start to get better jobs and better, those are going to be the generous ones, right?
And isn't that what a lot of these professional schools do? When you go on to, whether it's a medical school, a dental school, a law school, however, a lot of those schools are already setting those kids up with intern opportunities right there. So you're thinking that, so basically what you're saying is, obviously you don't want to see your sport cut. We understand that. But you're saying that we need, by adjusting the process of a student athlete going through a wrestling academic program and allowing them to get, whether it's one summer or the last 2 summers of internships, to be able to come out with a career, will cause more
donations. Yeah, and this is a long process, right?
Wrestlers that are making money right away.
Who wants to donate more to the sport than an ex-wrestler? I mean, that's where you're going to get your donors from, right? And you're going to get them quicker than, instead of when they turn 50 or 60, right? Like, you look at most of the boosters across the country in Division I wrestling, and I would just guess the average age is probably upper 50s, right? Like, you could tap into these revenue sources way earlier, right? You get these kids, you get wrestlers good paying jobs right out the gate. They're going to want to give back. They're still, they're fresh out. They're just going to be more willing to get involved, right?
And maybe even come back as a grad assistant, maybe even come back,
get their master's, something. Yeah. But the whole, I think the RTC thing is great for the quality of wrestling, right? This whole RTC program, it's, all these big schools have them where kids stay after and train for the Olympics and world team, right? I think that's great for the quality of wrestling in the United States, and the quality of wrestling has shot up tremendously, right? You look before we had them, the United States wasn't even sniffing medals in freestyle. We had a slump where we were awful, and now we're the force to be reckoned with Russia and Iran.
But you still want young kids to have Olympic aspirations and be able to.
Young kids, absolutely. You're even a high school kid, right? You should be watching those, thinking I can be there. But you got to be realistic once you're starting to grow older, right? I think the wrestling, I don't remember the statistics, but it's wrestling's the hardest.
Going to college and you realize, and I have family members that played baseball and they were in college, and they got to a point like their junior year where they were like, okay, I'm okay at this, but I'm not going to make it to the next level, so I need to adjust.
Yeah, you've got to adjust, and that doesn't mean you got to give the sport up. There's ways, like I do. There's ways to stay involved. Like I can practice with the Jesuit guys 2 or 3 days a week on the weekends, without quarantine. But that's plenty, dude. That's plenty. Trust me. Sometimes I'm spreading myself a little thin, but there's ways to get your fix. But chasing the dream for 4 or 5 years and sometimes most of the times isn't the answer for everybody. And then you're 25, 26, 27 years old. You got to try to start a career. That's tough.
So what's the answer? The NCAA, we don't want them cutting these school programs. What
No.
would you, if you were in the room right now with the NCAA and they said to you, okay, Kevin, here's the deal. We either have to cut some schools because the funding's not there, or what would you tell us to do?
The answer now, there's no quick fix, right? You need money, right? You gotta fund these programs. And if football is going to take a hit, if some of the basketball, if they're going to take a hit in revenue, that's some of the biggest, generators for most schools, right? So there is no quick fix, but you got to start somewhere. So you got to start closing the wrestling rooms down for 8 to 10 weeks a year and making it mandatory, right? You've got to make sure wrestlers have no other option than to go home and get internships and try to develop more programs where big employers are working with the NCAA to hire some of these kids, right? Just for 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks at a time. Maybe all you do is pay for their lodging if they've got to travel or something like that, instead of paying them a full-blown, salary as some internships do. But, it's not the answer isn't fixing it now by going out and trying to sell more tickets or giving out foam fingers or giving out free t-shirts to get
or even just saying, okay, the easiest way is just, okay, programs cut, because now,
yeah,
I mean, not only that, you have kids that came here for wrestling, but also in education. You cut the sport, you may lose the kids too. The kids might now not be able to go anywhere else. Now
yeah.
you cause those kids not to even be able to get or afford an education. So how do you?
It's
Everybody out there listening to this, if you have questions for Kevin, or if you have, if you're against what he's doing, if you're for what he's doing, if you have thoughts on it, he welcomes it. This is a good conversation to have, and it's going to help our sport. So go ahead.
And it boils down to how you going to get moms and dads to put their kid into wrestling. How are you going to do that, right? It's not so much of getting them, it has to be from the outside looking in. You have to see wrestling as a sport where your kid's going to end up better than they were before it. If they see kids going on after college and making good money as good contributing members to society, better than they would be without wrestling, take away the grittiness and maybe the physical shape, just mentally and, from a economic standpoint, can they contribute to society more if I put them in wrestling now? That's how you're going to get parents in, not by putting pictures of. Go ahead.
Can't this start at the high school level too? I mean, we have a lot of high schools now that are taking these kids and starting them with college courses or putting them on a OJT program where they're starting to get into some work things, and they get on that business college program, and that business says, okay, you can do this, and now we're setting up the process for those kids to.
So here's another question that anybody can weigh in on is, when's the last time you saw a wrestling media outlet, big wrestling media outlet, publish something on a very successful wrestler outside of wrestling, right? Like Novogratz, or there was a doctor that won the NCAAs at Michigan. I think it was Tannenbaum or Steve Luker, one of them. But there's not enough of it. I'm not saying that because I wasn't good in college and I want a special about me. I'm saying that is because you don't know who they are. You don't see them until they tell you. And there's no coverage there's no once a week or once a month special on life after wrestling for these guys. And if you're not winning medals or you're not competing to win a medal for the sport of wrestling, or you're not coaching someone to do that, what's the point of the coverage? That's their kind of way of thinking. And there needs to be more coverage of people that succeed. and outside of wrestling.
Which is part of also why I started this show, because
it's awesome. It's awesome.
I don't think that people in the wrestling community kind of see the success that wrestlers like yourself are having, because they followed you since you were a kid and you were a Florida wrestling legend, and they know where you're at now. But I don't think people know how many good lawyers, doctors, businessmen, people are out there that are funding wrestling rooms and clubs and things around the country, that those stories aren't done on them. We're not hearing about the NFL. Sure, during the NFL draft, you see people in the wrestling room saying, "Hey, that guy wrestled."
Yeah.
Got him the NFL, but
we're not talking about the common man here, right? We need the doctors, the lawyers, the finance professionals, everybody.
We need to hear
more coverage of that.
The kids need to hear about those, because they need to know that I can wrestle and I can be, Dr. Smith. Even
parents,
with
not kids, parents, right? Because in the end, parents usually have the say, right? Especially at a young age, whether they're putting their kid in wrestling or not. And if they log on to Flow Wrestling and the first thing maybe they click is an interview of like Brands or Gilman, they're like, what? These guys they're barbarians. Like, well, I don't want my kid to turn out like this, right? So there needs to be more, glorification of the people that go on and make a good amount of money, or they're happy doing something else, that they've transitioned and maybe they're still giving back or something like that.
I think the kids need to know that you can still live your dream and you can still accomplish your goals, and you don't have to be average. You don't have to be the average person and live an average life. You can still be great and do this. But there's a process to doing it the right way, is what I hear Kevin saying, to where you can still live your dreams. You can still even go on and be an Olympic athlete if you want.
Sure.
But how nice would it be to know that during the process, there was a company that I did internships with and there's residency with. And even as I'm training to do the Olympics, on my off time, I'm still able to get in and do some stuff with them, to where after my career is done, I have a career opportunity there.
Wrestling turns from a live or die situation where if you win, maybe you're like a Jordan Burroughs or a Kyle Snyder and you get a shoe deal, you get sponsorships. But if you don't, you're the fifth guy on the ladder, like you're making peanuts there. Like that's it's a big, like, there's a big gap of the top of the top, and then the guys competing for that spot. So you get that internship.
Where are you on paying student athletes?
So I don't know if they should get a salary, right? But I think they should be able to market themselves. Like, that's ridiculous. The NCAA doesn't even allow them to market themselves. They can't go make a T-shirt with their name on the back and sell them. That's the society. That's how America was built. Was the capitalist society really was entrepreneurship, and that's, kids can't even do that. That's ridiculous. So, and personally, I think maybe they should receive a little bit of a stipend, maybe a little bit, more depending on the sports, and they shouldn't be balanced. The football players shouldn't be receiving the same as the wrestlers. They bring in more revenue. That's life. That's business, right? You're a top sales guy at your company. You're bringing in more money than the bottom sales guy. So I don't have the answer to it, but I think there should be some sort of compensation for the 20 plus hours a week that they're putting in week in and week out, and then not being able to market themselves. That's criminal. That's ridiculous.
So there is some middle ground to this. Like you hear the people that are all the way left saying, well, you're getting a free education or a ride. And then you hear the people all the way right that are like, pay him, who gives a shit, right?
Yeah, I'm in the middle. I'm right in the middle. That they can't be rock stars. They can be living like rock stars, but maybe you just pay for their lodging and their food, and that's it. So
wouldn't you say that would a lot of success with college athletes comes from that hunger in their belly to be great and to get that opportunity to be either a pro athlete afterwards, or get that amazing job because your GPA is up, or get into law school or medical school or whatever you want to do afterwards. If I'm making money that's legit, can that hurt my hunger to?
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, and that's what That's what I mean is I think there needs to be a line where, maybe they get, and by the way, wrestling only receives 9.9 scholarships for 30 dudes. So 30 men or women. I don't know what the women count is either. I'm sure it's way lower if there's
And
any.
if that gets cut, that's going to
Yeah. Yeah. And that's 9.9 scholarships for 30 people. So they're not living lavishly. Right. And so maybe you have them reimbursed, not even you write them a check, you have them reimbursed for their lodging and you give them a small stipend for food, right? So they're living fine. They don't have to worry about making rent, right? And then they get some kind of scholarship. They're paying tuition. Most of them nowadays are paying tuition like everybody else. The days of full rides are pretty much over. There's no, hey, this guy's really good. This guy's probably going to be pretty good. Let's toss him a full ride to get him. Most people are on, the really top guys are probably on full ride, but most of the really good guys are probably anywhere that 50 to 75% range.
So what are they doing for the athletes? Obviously they have to eat, and a wrestler is a machine.
Yeah, they get a small, a lot of the programs I know at Tech, my final years, the food program was getting better, right? They were catering meals, I think once a week. The nutrition bar downstairs, we started to be able to get probably a meal there, like a bagel and a smoothie.
I'd imagine you're on a high protein.
Oh yeah. Our heavyweight Ty Walls, it was nuts how much this guy ate. Like the amount of calories you burn, the amount your metabolism burns throughout the day, you eat way more than the normal student. So they're doing a good job with that. I will say that, but I don't think they're far off. I think maybe lodging, you look for the average rent in the area that the school's in, and you write them a check every month or a check for 6 months for that rent. And maybe that's it. And they're allowed to market themselves. Do I think they should be making 50, 60 grand a year? No, that's ridiculous.
But how do we get your voice heard? How do we get on these lives and do something? When I get done with this video, I'm going to put it onto my YouTube channel, which is just nothing. I just started it like 2 weeks ago, but I'll send you the link. And how do we get people to share it? How do we get people in your community to share it? How do we get people that have your same belief talking about this?
That's a good question. And I think if we had the answer, maybe we'd get the ball rolling. But I think we've got to catch the attention of, that Novogratz guy, the big players that, that are involved in wrestling or that were involved in wrestling. And, so I think, we got to just catch more eyes and more ears. And like I said, this isn't going to be fixed in a year or 2 or 5 years, right? We have to get more participation. And that's the only way you're going to get a larger audience. Is you're not just going to start here with the same number of wrestlers and get more people, right? You need people to start fresh in the sport to spread that word of mouth, rather than not increasing the amount of wrestlers to try and increase the amount of eyes.
And correct me if I'm incorrect, because I don't know, because it's not on TV or whatever, but why are we not seeing something like what they're doing, like with hockey and football, where in the colleges you get kind of like that out of realm, outside craziness that they do that attracts a lot of attention? Why aren't we seeing something like that done in wrestling, where maybe once a year you have this huge outdoor tournament in a huge stadium, to where it's attracting attention, it's on TV, it's bringing in revenue, like they've done with the hockey and they've done with the football?
Yeah, that's a tough one. The NCAA tournament, I think, is the most watched wrestling tournament by a long shot, right? So that's going to be the pinnacle. How do you get this stuff in the off season?
But could you imagine?
It kind of boils down to money.
Imagine a college duel in the Coliseum,
right? But you got to pay the athletes to do that. You got to, you want to get the top dogs in the off season, write them a $5,000 check to come and compete, right? You win the NCAAs, maybe the 25-pounder wrestles the 33-pounder in a marquee exhibition in 2 months, right? How are you going to get those guys to participate if you're not going to pay them, right? NCAA has to maybe allow something like that to where, and then you pay them each $5,000. The winner gets a $2,500 bonus, right? It's not, you pay for their lodging. It's all in all probably not that expensive, but you've got to incentivize these guys to come and do that.
Yeah, and people are posting now. Business expert business advice, tips and resources. Getting girls wrestling sanctioned is a big step in the right direction. Wrestlers in a business network, wrestlingbusiness.org. So I guess these are these all platforms that you're involved in?
I haven't been involved in Wrestlers in Business. I've checked it out. There's not a chapter in the Tampa area. But I'm looking at trying to get involved in that. But that's a good thing. That might be a platform to try to get kind of where I'm trying to go.
And
not me professionally.
If there's a number of guys that that want to, I mean, I'm just, like I said, I've done 27 shows and I'm just kind of getting my name out there with this. However, is there a bunch of guys that you'd want to get on a Zoom with and you'd want to kind of talk to the public and try to put something out there?
I would love to. The problem is I don't know how many people like that. I really know. And that's why it's so burning, right? I run into wrestlers every now and then in work, not through work, actually. I mean, I know they're involved in the business community, but I myself don't really run into them. And I think that's a little alarming, but if a couple guys want to do it, I would be more than happy. Right. I would love to come up with a solution.
Do you think creating more networks or more, what do they call them? Leads groups or business networks for, wrestlers out of college could help too, where you already have.
So that's the thing, right?
Those groups are supporting the wrestlers while they're in college, maybe spending a day a week.
There you go.
Them.
Yeah, there you go. So you can form groups all you want. You can have happy hours. You can do all that. You can all reminisce about the old days, right? But they've got to be, getting press, right? People have to know about it, and they've got to be involved in a cause, right? Or they've got to be reaching out to colleges and trying to get these kids jobs, or reaching out to, I don't know, more donors, something like that, right? You can't just form the clubs and then do nothing with them.
No, what I mean is like there's business groups out there. So let's say you're in business and finance and you reach out to, if you're in business and finance, we want to put together a kind of a network group that offers college kids 1 day a week an opportunity to come sit with us, see what we're doing, and we educate them. Not just a club where it's like, hey, we go to a bar and we do NFL draft.
No, yeah, absolutely. Like a mentorship program.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a start for sure. Right. And as it grows, you get more and more participants and you get more people willing to help wrestlers. Right. It's a great start, and I think, you start to get that and you publicize that, right? You publicize how well it's working. And then I think you start to increase participation at the grassroots level. So I think that's kind of a good start, but people need to know about it, right? It can't just be a group of guys helping wrestlers, but no one really knows about it. You know what I mean? People that aren't in wrestling even that maybe have 5, 6, 10-year-old, 12-year-old kids need to see there's programs out there for these guys. Like if I put my son in wrestling or I put my daughter in wrestling, there's avenues to succeed outside of the sport.
Okay. So you have these opinions and you have this vision and you have these thoughts. Since you've been out of college, what have you done to try to contact coaches or contact the sport, or even, I know what you're doing in the clubs, how you're educating those minds, but what have you done? What have you put into action so far since you've been away from college to try to get people to hear you?
Right. I mean, I always speak my mind. I never just kind of tell people what they want to hear. I've voiced this a ton. Not only do I help with the club, the Jesuit club, but I'm mentoring a lot of the kids in the club about picking colleges and making sure their mind's right. So when they go to college, they know wrestling's not the end all be all. I've only been out of college for 3 years. I'm not
not a lot
or a CFO. I don't have a huge platform like that. to be able to go out and hold these conferences and stuff. And there really aren't these conferences where I would be able to speak at or raise awareness. So
how can you get involved in some of the NCAA athletic commissions where these conversations are had?
I don't know. I would love to, I would love to maybe consult or, be a part of those strategy meetings. Cause, in both of the jobs I've had, that's kind of where I've shined, is the strategy and deal making kind of aspects of the job. And NCAA is such a kind of clandestine operation, the very old school. If anybody's got any ideas, my inbox is open. I would love to do more. But being only 3 years out of college, I'm not, like I said, I'm not high up in my company by any means. So it's kind of tough for me to say, hey, look, everybody, look how far I've come in 3 years.
Yeah, but where do you believe, if you would have stuck the course and not made tough decisions that you had to make?
I try not to think about this question. That's funny. I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't have got the internship. I probably wouldn't have got my job that led to my, this job I'm in now. And I went to 2 career fairs in school when I was still wrestling, and I dressed all up nicely. I had a good, decent looking resume, and I would walk into these companies that I was looking at, or the companies that I wanted to work for. And I handed them my resume, and my GPA said, like right around a 3. They're like, have you had any internship experience before? No, but I'm a wrestler. They're like, okay, your GPA is only a 3.0. What's your in-major GPA? I'm like, oh, it's about the same, but I was a wrestler. And they're like, we'll let you know. And I was unsuccessful at both career fairs. I didn't get a call. I didn't get anything. So luckily I had a prior connection here in Tampa. I was able to intern for, and then came back the next year, worked there for 2 years, and then moved on. But, without quitting, I don't know. I have no idea.
So with all that being said, wrestling is what kind of helped you become the man you are today. It gave you the confidence to be able to make tough decisions. It's given you the ability to get a college degree, to get into a really good career. If people are listening to this, there has been nothing here that he said that this is a bad sport, that you shouldn't wrestle, that this is not a good track to be on. He's saying, get on the track, continue your dream, but understand that there is a world after wrestling. So make sure that on the academic side, you are excelling and you are taking opportunities to be able to do things. And it sounds like he's also asking for college coaches around the country, whether you're Division I all the way down to NAIA,
Yep.
or junior colleges. He's just saying, how can we put some sort of mentorship program into these rooms that are creating internships for these kids, to where you can try to intermingle this into, I'm a student athlete, but understand that there are bigger things, and we're giving them the opportunity to sit with these businesses and sit here and get out and get some real life experience, instead of just 4 years of wrestling and then you're dropped into the middle of a desert.
That's it, man. That's it. You can't put all your time, and you can't put all your eggs in the wrestling basket, when you're in college. You can't do it unless you have the talent to be an Olympic wrestler or a world team member. Then do it. Then you'll go on and coach, and you'll probably be very successful. But if you look at the percentage of wrestlers that go on to do that, after college, even after high school, very small, very, very small. So, you have to, as much as you want these kids to win while they're wrestling for you, you have to realize that they're going to have to go and be grown men, in short amount of time. They're going to have families to support, right? They're going to have to be a little bit more well-rounded, because there's I don't remember how many Olympic weights there are. There's 8, there's 10 maybe world team weights. I don't even know, but very small number. Very limited coaching opportunities in the NCAA. So these kids got to do something. And, you want to grow the sport. If you want to grow the sport, you want parents to see that these kids are going on and succeeding at anything they do after wrestling, not just wrestling or coaching, anything, business, doctor, lawyer, all that stuff, even plumbers and trade schools like that. Like, that wrestling mentality will carry on with you as long as you realize that you have to be well-rounded in everything you do in your life. You can't just focus on wrestling and let the rest fall by the wayside.
Right. And it sounds like, though, that still was your platform, your strength, your backbone was, wow, that taught me how to be a man and have confidence and be able to make decisions for myself. Because if you would have stayed focused and your dream was to go to world trials, you most likely had the talent to do that, but maybe you realized that after that, then what? So you adjusted your life.
Yeah. That. And I was always, my dad, he's a businessman, and I've always kind of grown up watching what he did and how he interacts with people. And I wanted that, I wanted to put on the suit and tie every day. I wanted to shine in something other than that. I've worked too hard in high school and college in the academics to just throw it all away. I wanted to succeed at something else, but I knew learning how to grind in a wrestling room, that would help my professional life. And
I think you can find, like, with these kids in the interview process, because there's, they can be, there's sports businesses, there's sports agents, there's sports.
Oh, there's plenty. There's a ton to do in sports, marketing, sales, there's a ton to do. And, you just, when you're an student athlete, you don't realize it. It's not really presented to you, right? This is a good career path here. And it lists all these jobs. There might be seminars you can go to, but when I'm cutting weight, I'm not going to a freaking seminar to like sit there and listen to that stuff. I'm in bed, watching Netflix or sleeping, right?
Because you want to kill somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
You're hungry. Even my 14-year-old wants to kill me when he's cutting weight.
Yeah.
Well, man, this has been unbelievable. Like I said, I'm usually on the air for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. This has been an hour and 15 minutes, and this is awesome. Cool. And I hope that you're heard through this portal. I'm gonna share this with as many groups that I have access to, and then once I put it on YouTube, I'll send you the link so that you can do whatever it is you would like to do with it. What on a positive note? So the brother is making progress. Sounds
positive like brother's doing well. Brother's doing really well.
Awesome. And not that it wasn't a positive note that we just went over. I'm just trying to change the subject a little bit, go on a different thing. That is all positive stuff that we went over. But on a positive note, he's made a change for the better, and that's good. Do you get up there often to see him?
I try to get up there for a football game and hang out with him. It's getting tough with work, but I think we play Penn State at home next year. I'm gonna try to get up there for that, see all the guys, spend time with Kyle. Now that he's not wrestling, he comes home a good amount, so we stay in contact. I'm kind of his mentor. I'm always, you can ask him every time he calls me. I don't care what he's doing. I ask him about his grades. I ask him, when this test coming up, how do you do on the last ones? I'm hyper focused on that for him because I know how important it was for me. So, but yeah, we're always in touch.
He didn't go to college and expect to get an injury. So
no one does, right?
Like I talked to Colin Palmer earlier in the week, or no? Was it?
That guy was a legend. That guy he's one of the best high school wrestlers ever to walk this planet.
And then he got injured at Ohio State, and he said, I had to make an adjustment.
Yeah. Now he's running a successful business, and he's still in the sport of wrestling, but he's running a successful club. We've never officially met, but he used to wrestle Eric Rohalis a good amount. But he's a perfect example. You can stay in the sport, but he's done everything. From what I hear, he's doing it the right way, and he's running a good business.
Mike
so
Kraus.
get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, Mike Kraus has a great business.
Oh yeah, yep. I mean, it's doable. It's very very doable. But you can't go in and run a wrestling club with no business sense. You can't do it, or you have to hire someone to do it for you. So that's where the getting the good grades, getting the internships, maybe getting a little bit of work experience comes into play, right? You can run the business and also teach the wrestling.
So, most memorable match.
Ooh, most memorable. Well, it's going to be a loss, but I'm not going to talk about that. So,
it's funny. I told people I talked to Scotty Sentis, and I asked people all these questions, and he was one guy. He was 215-3 or something in high school, and he only remembers those 3 losses.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. I still lay in bed awake at nights till 2 or 3 in the morning, like drawing things up differently. Those will never escape me, right? But it's kind of a motivating thing, reminiscing, whatever. But most memorable win, we were at the Clash my junior year, which is a big dual tournament in Minnesota. I wrestled the number 2 kid in the country. I beat him in overtime. It propelled me into the number 1 ranking. It wasn't a very high scoring match, but I won it very meticulously. I rode him out in double overtime, and I won the match, and I was number 1 in my weight class the rest of the year, and that was something I wanted to be since I was 5 years old. So
in
that
the entire country.
Yeah, it was. I made the cover of the magazine, like USA Wrestling Magazine or something, and it was special, right? But it was, I didn't really let it get to my head. But yeah, that was something I'll always remember. And like I said, I'll always remember the losses. Always, every single one.
What do you say to people who think you may have been the best Florida wrestler ever?
There's no way. Yeah, I'm probably in the conversation, but there's no way I was the best. There was a guy, David Craig, who wrestled for Brandon that in high school. You couldn't believe it. It looked like a movie when he wrestled. It looked like it was scripted, right? Guys like Eric Rohalis. He was a high schooler, and he placed at the senior world team trials or the senior nationals, right, in high school. Like, that's unheard of. So there were guys like that. Joey Silva was one of the guys, Fox, those guys. I might be in the conversation for the top 10, and then guys outside of high school like Josh Lambrick, NCAA finals, Jared Frayer, Hazel Winkle, those Franklin Gomez, we don't get enough credit, but it's very humbling.
So you're still a secret historian.
Yeah, I studied. I was a student in the sport. I watched all those guys growing up. I tried to mimic a lot of their styles. It was tough with Flo not really being around. That dates me a little bit, but when I grew up, we didn't really have much Flo. We had a little bit of YouTube. You had the Midlands on every now and then, the NCAAs. You record them on TiVo or on tape, and you'd watch them. But I was definitely a student of the sport.
And that's awesome, man. And I can't thank you enough for, you said you hadn't really spoke about this, and then I get an opportunity to talk to you, and you kind of let it out. I mean, that's pretty
cool. An out party.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's awesome. And like I said, I mean, you have the link to the show anytime you want to talk or you bring people on or.
Yeah. I'm going to do my part. I'm going to reach out to a few folks, get them on. Some guys a little bit bigger names than me. So stay tuned for that. But you and Ricky, for you guys doing this, this is the start. Like we said, you asked me, what's the start of growing this and getting these programs in place? This is it, right? Getting eyes and ears, getting people thinking, getting people acting, even people that disagree, right? Getting the discussion. That's what's really going to start all this. So I can't thank you enough, Ricky, and everyone that's tuning in and listening and sharing. So appreciate the opportunity.
It's been fun. I mean, I know we've been on here all this time, but Ricky would be angry with me if I didn't ask you the 10 questions.
Oh, yeah.
So let me pull them up here. Let's find them. Here we go. Let's go over here. All right. Headgear, no headgear?
So look, my ears are just absolutely mangled, right? I have probably the worst ears on the show you'll have. But so I didn't wear headgear. You want to grow the sport, make kids wear headgear, right? Put it on. I hate it. Everybody hates wearing it, but ears are a turn off to parents, right? Gross. So go ahead.
Singlet or two-piece?
Ooh, another thing. People are gonna crucify me for this, but two-piece, right? I mean, I think you should have an option, right? And I know people are most likely gonna choose singlet, but if you're not comfortable with wearing a singlet, give them the option to wear two-piece.
Yeah, Yanni said singlet, but he thinks two-piece is better for the sport.
Yeah, or maybe have a duel where NCAA teams make custom two pieces for a duel, right? So I think it's better because you're going to get more people involved.
Rap or country?
Oh, rap. I hate country.
Ice cream cake or birthday cake?
Oh, dude, I just had this discussion with my roommate, and I love cake, but I
Either
also love
way.
ice cream cake. Like, I don't think you should have an occasion to eat cake, right? You should just be able to go get a slice of cake. I had a piece of cake last night. No occasion.
Love it.
But that's funny that you asked.
Because you don't have to cut weight.
Oh, dude. Oh, I love it. Yeah, I just go out, Uber eat some cake. It's awesome. But I'm gonna go ice cream cake.
Nice. Brands or Sanderson?
Sanderson,
Iowa or Penn State?
Penn State.
Bowling or fishing?
Fishing. I stink at bowling.
Ocean or freshwater?
Freshwater. I grew up on a lake.
Okay, now the beach or the swimming pool?
I gotta go swimming pool. I gotta go swimming pool. I like the beach though. It's close.
Chick-fil-A or Popeyes?
Chick-fil-A. That shouldn't even be a question.
So I had Jaden O'Farrell, the fourth grader on before.
Yeah.
And he's like, I like the chicken sandwich at Popeyes, but I like the fries and the milkshake at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, man. Chick-fil-A is just quality. Man.
So he's going to go through the both. Hey, man, anytime you want to do this, man, I appreciate. You had to interrupt me from listening and tell me if I had any questions, because I was just in awe listening to the story. And you're like, you got questions? I'm like, no, I'm just listening. This is great. So I appreciate you talking about it. And again, hey, I think you have a point there. And it definitely does start in the club too, with the younger kids, and just advising them that education matters and sending them on the right path, and being there. I think coaches, your high school coach or your club coach, should be involved in the recruiting process, so they're able to talk to those coaches and understand that what they want for their kids. Right.
And I'll end it with, we need parents to want to put their kids in wrestling. I think that's just, as simple as that sounds. There's ways we can get people wrestling more notoriety, and we just got to get more participation at an early age. And any wrestler that's middle school, high school, college guy that needs advice, weight cutting, wrestling, professional development, whatever, you can hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever you want. I'll try to help you out.
Awesome. And if you want to roll around with them on the mat, how do they do that?
Also message. I don't know if you want to do that. I still got it. Those Jesuit guys, they know. They at first they wanted to roll with me, and now it's I don't take it easy. So, but yeah, I'm open for camps and all that once all this craziness is over.
You hear that, Ricky and Nick? Hit them up for Florida Pride.
Yeah, I still got it. I'll still roll.
All right, buddy. Hey, man, it was such a pleasure meeting you. I hope I get to meet you in person sometime. My sister and brother-in-law are partners in St. Pete Brewing Company down there in St. Pete.
Do it. My parents pretty much live in Treasure Island now, which is right down the street. So
once we get released from house arrest and we make it back down there,
let's do it.
We'll have to have a beer.
Let's
Because
do
you
it,
can
man.
have a beer these days.
Oh yeah. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, man. Take it easy, and prayers with your brother. Okay.
Yep. Thank you. Go Hokies.
All right, buddy.
Yeah.